Good morning, everyone. Good morning, members of the media, wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you all very much for coming out this morning at pretty short notice. But this is a very important media conference. I have with me my colleagues, the Minister of Works and Transport, the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, the Minister of Health, and I also have with me at the head table this morning the newly minted CEO of the ODPM, retired Major General Smart. As you all are aware, at about 5 o'clock this morning, the Met Services issued a red warning alert for Trinidad and Tobago. I want to assure the public of Trinidad and Tobago that since yesterday, from the time this storm that we now know is Tropical Storm Karen, from the time it was being formed and out in the Atlantic, we have been monitoring its progress and we've been in constant contact. So, each of the ministers will talk about what it is they've been doing, but the Minister of Works and Transport has been out on the ground, and even before that, doing work, but now specifically with respect to this, the various regional corporations under Minister Kazim Hosein, and as always, the Minister of Health and the Ministry of Health are always in a state of readiness and preparedness. The ODPM is the coordinating agency in these types of situations. So the ODPM and the Met Services and the ODPM and the various arms and services, including those under national security, have been in constant contact. During the course of yesterday, I was in constant contact with the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Griffith, our Chief of the Defence Staff, Air Commodore Daniel, and speaking to the Chief Fire Officer Acting, Mr. Smith. All of the arms are operational. We have our protocols were activated and in place. So at 5 o'clock this morning, I was contacted by the ODPM. We had a conversation, and thereafter I spoke to Mr. Sampson, who's the Director of the Met Services, and he alerted me to the fact that we would be going up to a red warning. I've just spoken to Mr. Sampson as well. As you all would be aware, the major information and it comes out of the Hurricane Center in Miami. Shortly after that, I was in contact with our Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley. We had a conversation. I alerted him and briefed him as to what was going on and the decisions that we needed to take. I've just come back from the airport where Dr. Rowley, as you're aware, had already pre-scheduled going off to the UN, and he will be addressing the UN. And this week at the UN is the General Assembly where all world leaders are meeting and dealing with various issues. The first thing I'd like to say is that we continue to monitor the weather. So between 5 o'clock this morning and a short while ago, speaking to the head of the Met Services, there has been some deterioration, if that's the right word, or some veering off of the storm, and we continue to monitor it. So what we would expect in these circumstances is a continual monitoring. This afternoon, sometime this afternoon, the Hurricane Center will be sending an aircraft up into the tropical storm to continue and give us first-hand information. So at this stage, this conference is to let people know that we're prepared, to let you understand some of the preparedness we've been doing. I've also been in touch with the Minister of Communication as well as the Minister of Public Utilities, Minister Rohan, and I have been speaking throughout the course of this morning. He just called me to say that TNTech have already put certain things on standby, meaning our mobile units, and he is continuing to monitor both from the TNTech side as well as the Water and Sewerage Authority, the WASA side. We have an acting Minister of Housing, Minister Mitchell. Minister Mitchell has been in touch, and Minister Mitchell has given me the assurance with respect to some of our housing developments that I'm sure the persons living there are expressing some concern. This was happening since yesterday, and that is the Greenvale area and the Oropoon areas. The Minister of Works would be able to provide us with some specifics as to the work that has already taken place over the past couple months with respect to the Greenvale areas. At this stage, we will continue to monitor. We have things in place. The Defence Force, the Police Service have already, and the Fire Service have already given instructions, and persons are in place. The police, during the course of the night, were monitoring, sending briefings as to what is taking place. I am sure by now persons have seen the videos of what has taken place in Tobago and certainly certain parts of Scarborough. The police are on the scene in Scarborough and are doing what has to be done, as are the fire services. Permission was given this morning to the chief fire officer to go ahead and call out the auxiliary services of the fire services in Tobago. So we are getting all the necessary hands on board. All of the men and women in the fire service, including our auxiliary officers, are out and assisting. We will continue, as I say, to monitor this. We will put out further information during the course of the day. At this stage, there is no need for us to make a decision as to a shutdown of Trinidad and Tobago for tomorrow. We're going to continue to monitor it. If the storm continues to weaken and the storm continues to make its way further up north, as is the present trajectory, then we will not be shutting down schools and businesses and government services for tomorrow. But we are continuing on a monitoring phase, and that announcement will be made during the course of today, one way or the other. All of the various ministries are in touch and we're sharing information, and we have been put into a state of preparedness. All of the protocols have been implemented and are already during the course of yesterday into today. Everyone is busy and working. I'd now like to turn over to the Minister of Works and Transport to give us some further information and specifics as to what they have done. Then I'll ask the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, and then the Minister of Health. And of course, we have the head of the ODPM here with us in case we need to answer anything specific. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister of National Security. Good morning to all. Welcome, members of the media. Just reporting on the work done by the Ministry of Works and Transport over the last couple of days. Once we were informed of the inclement weather, we triggered the protocols at the ministry where all the divisional heads and the agencies under the Ministry of Works and Transport would have gone in to basically an emergency gear where we would have ensured that all the structures was in place. The area managers, all the different heads in the different areas were put on alert. Yesterday, we would have toured some of the areas that we think would be severely affected because of the terrain of the different areas. The entire team would have gone out. We would have put systems in place, mobilized equipment, have equipment on standby, and we feel that we're in a position to respond in the shortest possible time. This morning, the team will be meeting again to assess the situation to ensure that everything is up and running and ready to go once they're required to do so. We also have on board the public transport system where we would have spotted buses, manual buses that can actually go through the water to some extent. We would have identified these buses and have them relocated to certain areas. So if we need to call on them, they will be readily available in different points on the island. In terms of the Port Authority, we have cancelled sailing today. Some of the vessels will move out to sea to ensure the safety of the vessels, and once they're required to come in, then they will come in because we need to protect the infrastructure as well. In terms of the airport, and we do have this morning members of all the agencies. We'll be monitoring that together with the Civil Aviation Authority, and if required, then we will put in the emergency protocol in all these areas. National Helicopter is here with us as well. They have triggered their protocols, and if they are required for any emergency, for any of the agencies, they're there to give that support. So the Ministry of Works and Transport, we are quite prepared to deal with any incident that may occur. And I want to thank the staff from the different agencies and the ministry who have been working throughout yesterday, last night, and early this morning to ensure that the ministry will be ready for any incidents that may occur during this time that we're monitoring this staff. We would have done since January, coming out of the disasters of last year, we would have done a significant amount of drainage and desilting work. We have seen the benefit of that so far, where in the flooding that took place, we had some very quick runoff. So we do have a lot of benefit from the work that we did. Unfortunately, based on the weather pattern that we're getting now, and if this weather pattern continues to hit us, we will be faced with some challenges, but we give the population the assurance that we are out there and we are ready to deal with any problems that may occur. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Sinanan. Minister Hosein.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good morning to my colleagues all in the audience, members of the media. We at the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government is prepared to deal with this situation. We have been working on it for a long while now, and the opportunity come now, and the 14 corporations have taken all of cooperation approach. So if Sandy Grande is affected and Point is not affected, we will mobilize and assist each corporation that is affected. I must compliment the Disaster Management Unit at the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, because they are the first responders, and we have our shelters in place, and most of the shelters are ready and willing to open at any time called upon. I have with me the head of Disaster Management Unit here, Mr. Jerry David, and we have all of the corporations. As I said, we have the equipments ready. We have the CEOs, which is the accounting officer in each corporation. We have called them out this morning, and they are ready and willing to respond to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister of Health. Minister Deyalsingh.
Thank you. Good morning, Minister Young, Cabinet colleagues, members of the media, members of the protective services. Good morning. So at the start of every rainy season, the Ministry of Health reviews, together with the RHAs, its protocols to deal with adverse weather systems. This year is no different, and we would have started that review as early as May of 2019. What happens now that we have an adverse weather system is that we kick it into gear. So what have we been doing since Friday? We have activated our command and control centers. What does that mean for the RHAs? It means we review logistics to make sure our hospitals and major health facilities can continue running. So for instance, backup generators are all checked, diesel supplies checked, so electricity supply can be continuous in the unlikely event that the national grid should fail. 2, we make sure our backup water supplies are adequate in case we can't get municipal water. 3, we make sure our communications capabilities are intact via shortwave and radios. That is in place, especially for the Northeast Peninsula, from Toko, Matura, Matlot, down to Sangre Grande, because that is a part of the country that is normally adversely affected when we have these weather conditions. So Eastern RHA has their ham radios up and running. I spoke to the CEO of Eastern this morning. Our staffing levels are very good this morning. I checked with all CEOs. Our staffing levels are excellent, and at this point in time, I want to thank all healthcare workers who came out to work this morning. Our supplies in terms of pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals are good in the case of any emergencies. So let's go down the chain now. That is command and control. Getting patients in the event that we have emergencies. I have spoken to Mr. Paul Anderson of GMRTT, who runs the ambulance services. They are at the ready, as usual, and in case there is a need for extra resources, they are in a position to put extra ambulances and extra resources on the roads if needed. What happens now if we have patients come into the facilities and we have a surge of patients in the unlikely event? What we have done, we have activated our call-out lists. That is, lists of doctors, nurses, and supply staff, lab staff, biomedical, who will come out in the event, in the unlikely event that we need extra human capacity. So that is also in place. What we are also doing as far as staffing levels are concerned in health, you have to remember that in health, very often these staff members may have to stay on shift, on the wards, in the facilities, and we have to take care of staff. So we have to make sure they have food, make sure they have water, and so on. All that is being done. So as far as the systems are concerned, as far as the RHA systems are concerned, everything is in place. We have been planning for this since around May or June. Just a word of advice now to the population. In the event of flooding, we want to advise the population, especially those who live in rural areas and in farm areas, not to handle dead animals. Because the handling of dead animals in flood areas, the risk of contracting leptospirosis, which as you know is deadly, accelerates. Call the regional corporations to use heavy equipment to move out dead animals. In the unlikely event you want to move a dead domestic animal, like a dead cat, a dead dog, double glove, wear protective clothing. If you are going out into flood waters, wear tall boots. A simple garbage bag is effective PPE to protect yourself from flood waters which carry bacteria and so on getting into your system. In the event that you don't have water at home, please boil water, or you can add a few drops of bleach, the typical tap water, to purify and sterilize your water. And as another note, we also advise people to keep a supply of medication for your chronic diseases like asthma, diabetes, hypertension, to see you through in the unlikely event you do not have access to medication. So that is what we have been doing since the start of the rainy season. We are at the ready. We have activated some 24-hour facilities, especially in the northeastern part of the country. So the Toko District Health Facility is a 24-hour facility. They are on high alert. Rio Claro is on high alert. Mayaro is on high alert. The Arima District Health Facility is on high alert, and everything is in place in the unlikely event that this situation should deteriorate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister of Health. I'd just like to add to all that you all have heard that from the Defense Force perspective, we have the necessary formations on alert and in a state of readiness, including the engineering battalion that are the normal assisters of first responders. I've confirmed with the Minister of Local Government that in some areas that are prone to flooding, and at this stage, the advisory from the Met Services are, we're looking at the north part of Trinidad in addition to Tobago. So the abnormal and unusual amounts of rainfall are really predicted at this stage, and we're hoping that as the system continues its path and it hopefully veers off. But at this stage, we're really looking at the northern areas of Trinidad, the northeastern, straight across to the northwestern parts of Trinidad. We will continue to monitor that. You can continue to expect ODPM and the Met Services to put out their advisories. The government will continue to communicate through the Ministry of Communication and the various ministries, including the Ministry of National Security. The police service since yesterday, so the Commissioner of Police had given instructions for everyone to be out and to be in a state of readiness, including the type of wear that they needed. The Commissioner of Police had even said to make sure that they're prepared to go out in the wet circumstances and the wet prevailing climate arrangements. The Minister of Public Utilities has asked that we advise that the Tobago compound for TNTech, you all would have seen the videos that were circulating this morning. They are dealing with the vehicles and they managed to move 20 out of 22 of the trucks out of the compound. Since yesterday, TNTech had already taken the precautionary measures and moved the mobile units that Public Utilities had worked with TNTech to get, which are really huge standby generators, to certain areas in Trinidad and Tobago. So they're located in Toko, Blanchisseuse, Point Fortin, Charlottesville, and Rio Claro. So far, there are no reports of any major outages. Crews are dispatched. So TNTech since yesterday, had implemented its protocols and its policies. WASA has also implemented its protocols and policies and are looking at the surface water sources, including operations in Trinidad and Tobago. What we're seeing, members of the public, members of the media, is that this is not an unusual circumstance for all of these various agencies. We have implemented the necessary protocols. We are on standby. We will continue to monitor the situation, and let us all hope that it veers off. If it doesn't, we are in a state of preparedness. The acting Minister of Housing has just sent through information with respect to Greenvale and Honourable. The water levels there, according to what we've just been provided with, we have people on the ground there, are very low. All of the pumps are working and they have people monitoring. But he's shown me photographs of the water levels there, and currently the water levels are low. We're asking that everyone just keep in touch. We will be circulating, as we've already begun since yesterday, the numbers for the various regional corporation disaster management units. And I know Mr. Jerry David has been leading a charge there under Minister Hosein for the past few months. For the past 6 months at least, the various disaster management units in all of the corporations have been conducting exercises, what we call tabletop exercises, and beyond tabletop exercises, going out and creating scenarios as though they've been disasters. So let us hope that none of these things have to be implemented and used, but the message we're sending today is that if they have, we are all prepared and we will deal with it as comes. Coming out of one thing that the Minister of Health said a short while ago, that is a lesson that was learned last year. In the hopefully unlikely event that there is flooding, we ask persons, once the weather is passed, etc., please do not venture out and try. What we had last year is persons getting stuck in flood waters, trying to make their way around, and that just presents more unnecessary stress for the first responders, etc. We are going to continue to monitor these things at the national security level. We have already instigated and initiated our protocols on our various command centers. The Commissioner of Police has his command center that is always working. He's added additional resources. They're up and running, and ODPM as well is coordinating what needs to be coordinated from ODPM. At this stage, we'll take a few questions. All right, thank you very much, members of the media. No questions?
Minister Young, Joshua Simondo from TV6. I just wanted to get a little more information from out of Tobago. Can you tell me how extensive the reports of flooding are there and which areas have been affected most?
The main information we've gotten so far is really Lower Scarborough. There's also been some landslides or landslips and some falling of trees up on the northeastern, up in the Charlottesville side of Tobago, but we continue to monitor. So what we had is some surging taking place in Lower Scarborough. Some of the businesses there were affected, but as I said, both the fire services and the police are already there, as well as and what I'm being told by the Minister of Works and Transport is the cleanup has already begun through the use of the various entities over in Tobago. So we will continue to monitor. Now, Tobago was already alert. I know that yesterday, I believe the Chief Secretary and others had a special meeting. TEMA has been leading the charge there, so we're in contact with TEMA as well, Mr. Alan Stuart, and that is the information we have at this stage. There may have been some damage to a jetty and some ships in the Plymouth area, but again, at this stage, we continue to monitor and provide whatever services we can provide from here. But the main first responders are the THA, but the police quite efficiently and the fire services were on the ground straight away, as well as my colleagues' assistants in Tobago through Ministry of Works and Transport.
In the report coming out of Tobago that help was dispatched to 12 people in Tobago. Can you confirm or not confirm that, although the severity was not determined, but I did hear that 12 people needed help in Tobago.
I can't confirm the exact numbers. I say the first responder assistance there will really be coordinated by TEMA, who's the sister agency for Tobago, working with the ODPM. So we don't have that exact information, but what I can say is we are providing whatever assistance we can, including our police service. We have a formation across in Signal Hill of the Defence Force, and as I say, Mr. Smith early this morning gave the go-ahead to the fire services to bring out the auxiliary officers. So I don't even know, you haven't said where those 12 people are, etc. I can't confirm or deny that at this stage.
Two questions from me, Faye Richards from CNC3 and Guardian newspaper. What time frame are you looking at this point in terms of how long we are all on standby for this kind of weather?
Unfortunately, I can't predict where Tropical Storm Karen will go and how she may or may not develop. So we just remain on alert at this stage. In speaking to the head of the Met Services before coming into this conference, he's confirmed that we maintain the warning red warning level at this stage. But as I say, we will be given intermittent reports as we go through the course of today until we believe that we're out of harm's way. And there can be a lot of feeder bands, as they call it, that even though the storm may have passed and gone on its way, there may still be some rain and some wind associated with the tail end. So as soon as we can lift it, as soon as we have further information, we will provide it. But at this stage, it is impossible to predict. We were looking at yesterday, when we look at the trajectory, the current trajectory, it actually shows it being much further up north into tomorrow, but we'll continue to maintain. These things are unpredictable to an extent.
And Minister Hosein, for you, in terms of the sandbagging, are your regional corporation disaster management units still handing out sandbags today? And also, in looking at the lists that were posted yesterday of which corporations were facilitating sandbag distribution, it wasn't all 14. Can you say why some were and others didn't seem to be immediately part of that exercise?
Most of the corporations requested, and the head of the disaster management unit contacted the 14 corporations. Some have been delivering up to this morning to some of the corporations, and at this point I would like to say the most of the mayors and chairmen of the 14 corporations and all the councillors throughout the country have been in touch with them, and they are making sure that the sandbags reach out to the citizens. Okay. And any problems, the first point of contact is your local government representative, because we are the first responders in this scenario.
Just a little further piece of information, as you all asked about Tobago. There are some outages, electrical outages taking place in Tobago across various areas. But the Minister of Public Utilities and TNTech are aware of it and are monitoring the situation. And as soon as it is safe for the TNTech crews to do what they need to do, and I'm not saying that it isn't, because we're getting the information as it comes, they will be seeking to restore electricity in the various areas that there's currently no electricity. All right, members of the media, you all will be getting information from the government and especially from ODPM and the Met Services as we continue to progress during the course of the day. A decision will be made by the government later on today as to what should be done tomorrow. At this stage, we just continue to monitor. And as you all would appreciate, the various ministers are anxious, as am I, along with our heads of security and other heads of departments, to get on to do what it is we need to do. So thank you all very much. I'll end by asking this. I ask persons to just continue to be responsible in the sharing of information. We have seen in the past that some very mischievous persons tend to put out information that is wholly untrue and simply just in that realm of mischievousness, including persons are willing to share information that is not even from Trinidad and Tobago to make it look as though it is Trinidad and Tobago. We will continue through the Ministry of Communications as well as ODPM Met Services and the various ministries to put out the government information as we get it and as we see necessary and as we see fit. There is no need for anyone to go into any sense of urgency or panic. We have put ourselves in a state of preparedness. We have learned from the past, and we will continue to monitor and do what needs to be done for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you all very much for attending here this morning.